Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're going to dive right into a deeply sobering ancient narrative that really confronts how we approach the divine. We're looking at a fascinating and honestly kind of terrifying piece of source material that explores the collision between human worship and divine holiness. So we're going to unpack this ancient story found in Leviticus chapter 10. We'll see exactly what it exposes about reverence, passion, and the hidden dangers of how we bring our offerings to the sacred.
Think about this quote for a second. A man can stand near the altar and still be far from God. Now that is a jarring paradox, isn't it? That thought should probably bother us a lot more than it actually does. You see, you could literally wear all the right clothes, know all the sacred words, and even be raised right in the middle of a faith community, and still, in one careless moment, treat the presence of God like some common thing you can just toss around. Just let the weight of that sink in for a moment before we move on.
All right, moving into section 1, the danger of nearness. Nadab and Abihu.
So let's look at who these guys actually were. They weren't just random outsiders, these were Aaron's sons. They were born into immense privilege, and they were incredibly familiar with the sacred. I mean, these men literally watched the wilderness open up with miracles. They saw God judge Egypt. But then we get this terrifyingly abrupt sequence of events in Leviticus 10. Step 1, they approached with their censers. Step 2, they offered profane fire which God had not commanded. And step 3, fire went out from the Lord and entirely devoured them. There was no grand speech, no warning trumpet, no trial, no quiet demotion from their roles, just boom, immediate consuming judgment. And the text gives us this chilling, very specific detail. They died before the Lord. If you read that too fast, your mind kind of wants to protest, like, whoa, was it really that serious? But look at the actual location of their failure. They didn't die before Moses. They didn't die before their dad, Aaron, or before the crowds. They died before the Lord. The tabernacle wasn't a stage, and the altar wasn't a prop. God actually sees the worship, and that is the true terror of this moment. Which brings us to section 2, strange fire and silence, the wound in the story. Looking at the immediate aftermath, the text reveals the core wound of the story. They offered what God had not commanded. Now, we're not talking about a tiny liturgical typo here. It's not like they accidentally bumped a table or put a ceremonial cup on the wrong side. No, they crossed a hard, divine boundary. They brought their own fire into a space uniquely ruled by God's command. Basically, they acted like sacred worship was something they could just shape with their own human impulses. And the response to this? So Aaron held his peace. Man, this might literally be one of the heaviest lines in the entire text. We really have to pause and feel the agonizing weight of Aaron's silence here. He is a grieving father. His sons have just died in front of him. His whole world is shattered, yet he says absolutely nothing. Not because his human grief is small, but because God is holy. The source material refuses to let a father's profound sorrow become an excuse to accuse God's unyielding justice.
Let's look at section 3, preference versus obedience. Exposing modern worship.
You know, it's really easy to just leave this as some ancient tragedy, but this actually holds up a mirror to our modern practices. On the left side here, we have our modern emotion-driven metrics. Did it touch us? Did it lift the room? Did it feel good? But the biblical metric on the right asks one singular, harsh question. Did God command it? The text makes it clear that God requires obedience over personal preference. Why? Because human emotion is incredibly fragile and subjective, while His holiness is unchanging. The biblical metric doesn't clap for our creativity if it flat out ignores divine instruction.
As Leviticus 10:3 explicitly says, "By those who come near me, I must be regarded as holy." The source material is crystal clear on this point. God demands to be treated as holy, not just popular. He demands to be glorified, not preferred. Worship has to be centered entirely on Him, not molded around our personal preferences or what we think looks cool in our own hands.
Section 4. The trap of presumption. Familiarity breeds casual hands. When you're handling sacred things week in and week out, familiarity can breed some terrifyingly casual hands. And that leads directly to presumption. Presumption is basically assuming God accepts well-meaning disobedience. It's this subtle, bitter thought that simple obedience is just too plain to impress anyone, so we decide to improve upon what God has already made clear. It is quite literally unauthorized passion wearing worship clothes.
Let's look at Nadab and Abihu one more time to really drive this home. They approached. Not enough. They had priestly blood. Still wasn't enough.
They had the censers and the incense. Not enough. They lacked obedience. To ensure worship practices actually align with Scripture, the text outlines 3 key steps for church leaders. First, audit your approach. Are you coming with deep reverence or is it just routine? Second, audit your tools. Are you relying on production value or pure devotion? And third, audit your obedience. Is your primary goal to honor God's commands, or are you just trying to entertain an audience?
Now, the text definitely does not say God hates passion, but it absolutely condemns unauthorized passion. So if you're a church team looking for a quick checklist to evaluate if your worship is biblically grounded, ask yourselves this: is our focus highlighting God's glory or just our own talent? Is our song selection rooted in robust theology, or are we just chasing emotional highs? Basically, are we bringing a heart burning before the Lord, or just a hand carrying rejected presumptive fire?
Moving to Section 5, Reverence under Grace. The cross does not erase holiness.
Now, I know what you might be thinking. Wait, don't we live under grace now? Yes, but as the source text brilliantly points out, grace brings us near through Christ, not through carelessness. Grace does not hand us a blank check to invent our own rules for the altar. Jesus died outside the gate precisely because sinners couldn't survive God's holiness without a mediator. The cross doesn't prove that sin is small or that holiness suddenly doesn't matter anymore. Actually, scratch that. It proves the exact opposite. It proves sin is so deadly that only the blood of the Son of God could answer for it.
Which brings us to this highly sobering thought from our explainer today. Almost obedient can still carry strange fire. Borrowed holiness isn't going to protect your soul. Having a fancy religious title, a well-known family name, or a prominent position in a church does not make disobedience safe. Being physically close to holy things is absolutely not the same thing as being submitted to the Holy One.
We really have to reflect on the nature of God's judgment here. The flame from heaven didn't create the problem with Nadab and Abihu, it simply exposed the disobedience that was already sitting right there in their hands before anyone else even noticed. Think about the nature of fire for a second. Some fires warm the room, some light the path, some fall directly from God, and some fires exist solely to expose the disobedient hand that dared to carry them.
Which leaves us with a really piercing question. With all our modern ability to perfectly mix the vocals, program the platform lights, and perfectly curate the mood, do we still know how to tremble? Do we know how to say, "Lord, not my fire, yours"? I'll leave you to examine your own approach to God's holiness with that thought. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer.